How are you? How have you been?
I'm okay. It's definitely been a rough few days. So, as I came in the last few times, I was telling you that I have the ACT coming up, and I've been really struggling with preparing for it because I get really bad test anxiety. I get really shaky. My stomach starts to hurt really bad. I start to feel really sick. I feel like I can't concentrate. Like I feel so overwhelmed. And I'm starting to get really concerned with how I feel like I'm not going to do well on it. And I need to do well on the ACT. And because of college, I put so much pressure on myself that I worry that I'm going to not do well. And I don't know what to do at this point.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds like you've been very stressed. I know that the deadline, each session we get closer to you taking the test. I think that you really value your education. This anxiety is coming from a place of wanting to do well so you can get into the colleges you want to get into, so you can, get the scholarships that you want to get. So I understand that it can be really stressful, and you're having these physical symptoms now on top of the mental stress that you're having. So yeah, I can tell that you're experiencing a little distress.
Yeah, it's really concerning because I'm a good student. Like my GPA is really well, like really good. I do well in all my classes, and even like tests in my classes, like I feel the symptoms, but it's not nearly as bad. And with my GPA, like I'm in the running to be valedictorian or salutatorian of my class, and that's amazing. Like I'm very proud of myself for that. But when I look at certain colleges, they have these scales where you have a certain high GPA, but if you have low test scores, then you're not going to get the scholarships, because all the schools I'm looking at require test scores and see those as important. And that's really frustrating because I don't think those are the best ways to see how I've done as a student.
Yeah, that can be very distressing to look at, and it seems like your values don't really line up with what the school is valuing. You've put in all this effort into getting your GPA up. You're on a great track. You're doing really well in school, and so it can be upsetting to think that this one test score might ruin your chances of getting into something that you want to achieve.
Yeah, and I don't have like a specific school that's like my end goal. Like there's a bunch of schools where they all have the program I want and all of the like professors and stuff that I've researched, they all sound amazing. But my worry is if I get into these schools and the scholarships I get where I have to pay so much money, because like I don't want to have to worry about like taking out all these loans every semester, because I don't want to be like most people who have like student loan debt. Like I'm really good at saving money, and I worry that I'm going to basically have to go through my entire life savings plus loans just to get the education that I want.
Yeah, it sounds like you really value being financially stable. You don't want this goal of going to college, and you're looking at these professors, you're looking at these programs, it's what you want, it looks like something you do well in, but the idea of having to kind of mess yourself up financially like that is something scary. It's definitely a deterrent to doing what you want to do.
Yeah, and my parents have been great, and they've offered to pay, but I like being financially independent. As soon as I turned 16 and as soon as I had a car, I told my parents I'm going to apply for a job. I've worked in food service. I have spent those long nights like working, and I have, got all that money I've saved up. I have, instead of using the money for certain things that would have been like really fun, like I've been a lot more like strict with how I use my money. And I knew I would have to use the money to pay for college, but it's looking more and more like that money's not going to be enough. And I don't want my parents to worry about having to help me pay for college, because I just value like being financially independent. I feel like this is a good point in my life to start being financially independent.
Yeah, you sound extremely hardworking. You've put in a lot of effort into setting yourself up and you know, you value your relationship with your parents, you value being financially independent, so it feels like it feels distressful to you to, you know, think that it might not be enough. You might still have to take out all these loans even though you've saved up all this money, and that idea of it not being enough is really stressful. So I can see where, you know, a lot of this anxiety is coming from as well, outside of just taking the test itself.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that with tests, like, my school is going to have where all of us take the test, and that's later on, and it's going to be free, but I wanted to take it earlier, and if I don't do well here, and if I don't do well at school, then I would have to take it again, and every time you take the test, it costs money, and I don't want that to go into, even though it's a small amount, I don't want it to add up, so I've been doing all these ACT practice tests, and finding those online and meeting with teachers, but every single one of them I do, I'm like, my score is nowhere near where it should be, and it's like on the lower end, it's below the average, even if I'm in my room, and my worry is, if I'm in my room taking these tests and I'm not doing well, then what does that say about how I'm gonna do the day of? So that's just, I'm just really concerned, and I feel like I'm running out of time.
Yeah, that does sound very distressing. It sounds like it's been taking over a lot of your life. It's all you can think about is, you know, you're looking at how you do here, you're looking at how you might do in the actual test room, you're comparing all these scenarios, you're planning out what might be the end result, and, you know, obsessing over that can be really, it can be a strain on your mental health, you know, it can be a lot to think about every day.
Yeah, and some of my friends, they took the test early and they applied to these different schools, and a few of my friends even got accepted and got really good scholarships at these schools because they had a good GPA, like probably like a little bit like lower, about the same as mine, but their test scores were so good that they got all these scholarships, and I'm comparing myself to them, like, wow, like, am I really like a good student, because like they're doing well both in their GPA and test scores, and I'm struggling in both, so that's really hard, kind of comparing myself to my friends and downing myself, and I feel like I'm not really appreciating all the hard work I've done, and more focusing on the like stress and how I'm not a good test taker, but it feels like it's just taking over my thoughts.
Yeah, I can definitely see that you're a good student. I can see the dedication from the sessions that we've had. I can tell that you put a lot of work into, you know, most aspects of your life. You care a lot about everything, so I can see where you might have that doubt when you start comparing yourself to others. You know, you can get jealous thinking of like, oh, they're getting all these good things, why can't I achieve that? Is there something, you know, that I'm not doing right? So that can lead to a lot of other problems, you know, once you start looking at how your friends measure up to how you're doing.
Yeah, and it's really hard because even though my parents haven't put the pressure, I feel like I'm letting them down by not hitting this achievement of like doing well on the ACT and doing well, like taking the test, because they have been really proud of me of doing all these other things, of being very involved and doing all these extracurriculars and working hard. And I feel like if I don't get the test scores, then it's going to be all for nothing, and all their support and hard work, it's going to feel like it didn't do as much. And I'm worried about disappointing them with not getting to this final step, and then, you know, them being concerned if we have to pay for more of this, even though like they may not be feeling this, but like I'm worried that they are.
Yeah, it sounds like you value your parents' opinion. You know, you want them to think highly of you. They've been, you know, supportive of you your whole life, and you don't want to let them down, and that makes sense that you're feeling that way now. I think that is probably a factor too in the anxiety that you're feeling from the test. You have so many things that you're thinking about, that it's, you know, it's really overwhelming at this point.
Yeah, it's definitely really overwhelming. And like, I feel like every morning I wake up and I get more anxious because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like I have this many days for the test.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's like an internal countdown happening, and I'm just worried about what will happen if it's the day of, and you know, I wake up that morning and I already feel sick and I don't eat enough, I don't sleep enough for the night before, and then I put myself even at more disadvantage because it's a long day. It's really early in the morning, and I'm going to be around a bunch of other people who I don't know who they are. So it's just really overwhelming to think about and all consuming at this point.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of different factors that are leading to the distress that you have. You know, you're feeling really overwhelmed. I think that for our next session, we could talk about some coping skills. You know, I don't know if you've considered any or tried any before, but that might be something to look into. You know, there's a lot of people that are experiencing what you're going through. There's a lot of people with test anxiety, so you're not alone in what you're feeling. So it might be good to take a look into that. It might be good to think of ways to try and distract yourself, because it's feeling like a lot of cycles of just going through the same, you know, stressful patterns in your head of thinking, oh, what if this happens and this happens and now I've done this, so it's going to lead to this. So it might be beneficial to try and look into some, you know, things that you can take your mind off of what you've been stressing about so much. And then in the next session as well, you know, we can go over the outcomes, what our choices might be depending on how you score on this test. So it might be good to look at, you know, what the end result might be from all this, because I know we are getting closer to the date, and you know, if you take the test and you know you need to reach out to me and we need to have a session, we can go over whatever the results might be or how you feel after the test has been taken.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I'll see you for the next session, and hopefully you start feeling a little less stressed over everything.
Thank you so much.